Initiative for Health Accountability and Transparency. You are welcome to continuing medical education course on attitudes, medical ethics, and health communication, Module 2, which is focused on medical ethics. The outline of this module includes introduction to medical ethics, the principles of medical ethics, different types of ethical codes, duties and responsibilities of physician, patient bill of rights. We'll also talk about professional misconduct and malpractice, and look at disciplinary mechanisms and selected medical tribunal cases. We'll take a look at special problems in ethics and finally draw a conclusion. The learning objectives of this module is that the participants will be able to understand the definition and key issues in medical ethics, discuss the principles of medical ethics, discuss different ethical codes, discuss the duties and responsibilities of physicians, understand patients' bill of rights, understand professional misconduct and malpractice, and also be familiar with the existing disciplinary mechanisms. The participants will understand selected medical tribunal cases and draw lessons from them. And finally, understand special problems in ethics that are common in Nigeria. The practice of medicine and practice of ethics are inseparable. Clinical decisions frequently invoke an ethical decision as well, and it's safe to say that clinical decisions do often have ethical dimensions. In many instances, the ethical issue may not be readily apparent. In others, conflict may arise between ethical principles and medical decisions. And this requires the clinician to be well versed in ethical principles in order to take a guide to make medical decisions. Ethics is concerned with moral principles, with values and standards of conduct. Morality is the value dimension of human decision making and behavior. Ethics is a unique concept. Ethics is not the same as feelings or conscience. Ethics is not religion. Ethics is not law, nor does it follow the law. Ethics is not following culturally accepted norms, and ethics is not science. Historically, medical ethics may be traced to guidelines on the study of physicians, such as the Hippocratic Oath. A physician must recognize responsibility to patients first and foremost, as well as to the society and to other health professionals and to self. These are not laws, but standards of conduct which define the essentials of honorable behavior for the physician. Therefore, ethics are moral principles, what is good and bad. Ethics is what is right and wrong. Ethics is based on value system. Ethical norms are not universal and therefore depend on the subculture of the society. Ethics refers to standards of behavior that tells us how human beings ought to act in the many situations in which they find themselves, as friends, as parents, as children, as citizens, as business people, as teachers, as professionals, and so on and so on. The relation between doctor and patient is based on mutual trust, which forms the foundation of medical ethics. However, the honors and ideas of medical profession imply responsibilities of physician extends beyond the individual to the society. The public expect doctors to have high standard of medical ability and skill, and also high ethical behaviors. Medical ethics is not law, but closely related to law. Quite often, ethics prescribes higher standards of behavior than does the law, and occasionally, ethics require that physicians disobey laws that demand unethical behavior. Professional ethics as a type of ethic. Professional ethics are the civil code of behaviors considered correct by member of the profession for the good of both the stakeholders and the profession itself. Now let us look at the rationality for medical ethics. The study of ethics prepares medical professionals to recognize difficult situations and to deal with them in a rational and principled manner. Ethics is also important in physicians' interactions with the society and their colleagues, and for the conduct of medical research. The second aspect of rationality is that ethical principles such as respect for persons, informed consent, and confidentiality are basic to the physician-patient relationship. Application of these principles in specific situations is often problematic, since physicians, patients, and their families and other healthcare personnel may disagree about what is the right way to act in a particular situation. Let us take a brainstorming session. What are the principles of medical ethics? You may wish to take a pen and a notebook and put key issues you can remember of your understanding of principles of medical ethics. It should be in one keyword. Let us now look at the principles of medical ethics. The principles are basically autonomy, beneficence, confidentiality, non-maleficence. Sometimes people add the fifth one, which is equity or justice. Let us look at them one by one. Let's start with autonomy. Autonomy means the patient's will is the supreme law. Autonomy describes the right of the patient to self-determination. The patient has freedom of thought, intention, and action when making decisions regarding healthcare procedures. For a patient to make a fully informed decision, he or she must understand all risks and benefits of the procedure and the likelihood of success. And in this regard, she requires the expert's opinion and guidance from the physician. Always respect the autonomy of the patient, freedom or right of the patient to choose. Such respect is not simply a matter of attitude, but a way of acting so as to recognize and even promote the autonomous actions of the patients. The autonomous person may freely choose loyalties or systems of religious belief that may adversely affect him. The patient must be informed clearly the consequences of his action that may affect him adversely. Desiring to benefit the patient, the physician may strongly want to intervene, believing it to be a clear medical benefit. The physician has a duty to respect the autonomous choice of the patient, as well as a duty to avoid harm and to provide a medical benefit. The physician should give greater priority to the respect for the patient autonomy than to other duties. However, at times, this can be difficult because it can conflict with the paternalistic attitude of many healthcare professionals. Consent is part of autonomy. It is necessary to seek the patient's permission before carrying out any investigation or treatment or any procedure. In the case of a child, the principle of avoiding the harm of death and the principle of providing a medical benefit that can restore the child to health and life will be given precedence over the autonomy of the child's parents as a surrogate decision makers. The second principle after autonomy is beneficence. And this requires physicians to take positive actions for the benefit of patients. Because patients do not possess medical expertise and may be vulnerable because of their illness, they rely on physicians to provide sound advice and to promote their well-being. Truthfulness is part of beneficence. The doctor must tell the truth at all times. Many patients want to know the truth. However, it should be noted that breaking unpleasant news on dreaded or feared diseases can be an ethical dilemma sometimes. In line with this principle, it promotes patient best interests by understanding patient perspective, address misunderstandings and concerns, try to persuade patients, negotiate a mutually acceptable plan of care, and ultimately let the patient decide. The physician cannot be required to violate fundamental personal values, standards of scientific or ethical practice, or the law. If the physician is unable to carry out the patient's wishes, the physician must withdraw and transfer care of the patient somewhere. Confidentiality is another key principle. Physicians must maintain the confidentiality of all personal medical and treatment information. And it is to be noted that confidentiality is based on loyalty and trust. Information to be revealed for the benefit of the patient and when ethically and legally required. And doctors must understand the procedures to follow. Another key principle is non-maleficence, what we call do no harm. Make sure that the procedure does not harm the patient or others in the society. And do no harm forbids physicians from providing effective therapies, from acting maliciously or selfishly. It provides limited guidance since many interventions also entail serious risks and side effects. Provide standard care, if no benefit, at least do not harm or make the situation worse. If benefit equals to harm, then do not intervene. Physicians are obligated not to prescribe medications they know to be harmful. Some interpret this value to exclude the practice of euthanasia, Violation of non-maleficence is the subject of medical malpractice litigation frequently. The other principle is equity or social justice. The term in a general sense means fairness. It is important to act consistently in cases that are similar in ethically relevant ways. Otherwise, decision will be arbitrary, it will be biased and unfair. And this is the basis for equity or social justice. The distribution of scarce health resources and decision of who gets what treatment, that is fairness and equality, and the burden and benefits of new or experimental treatments must be distributed equally among all groups in the society. It should not be exclusive to only the privileged few. The four main areas that healthcare providers must consider when evaluating justice are fair distribution of scarce resources, competing needs, rights and obligations, potential conflicts with established legislations. Let us look at the fundamentals of medical ethics. It includes respect for persons, avoid deception, maintain confidentiality, act in best interests of patients, and allocate resources justly. This is just summary of the principles that we have highlighted in the earlier slides. Let us take a second brainstorming session, and this will be on ethical codes. What do you understand by an ethical code? And list at least 3 medical ethical codes that you are familiar with. You may wish to take a note and pen to put down in keywords medical ethical codes. What are ethical codes? An ethical code is a set of moral principles used to govern the conduct of a profession. In medical profession, there are quite a number of them. The significant ones include, first and foremost, every doctor is mostly familiar with, is the Hippocratic Oath. We also have the Declaration of Geneva, the International Code of Medical Ethics. We have the Nuremberg Code, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and finally, the Helsinki Declaration. Let us look at these codes in more detail. The Hippocratic Oath is one of the earliest documents in medical ethics. It dates back to 5th century BC. Traditionally, all doctors recite this oath at swearing in. It is considered sacred for its religious foundation and for emphasizing on sanctity. The rigid set of ethics disregards circumstantial variations and cannot be followed in today's healthcare system. There is the Declaration of Geneva. The World Medical Association adopted this declaration in 1948. It is a declaration of physicians' dedication to the humanitarian goals of medicine. That is why a lot of people see the role of healthcare professionals as humanitarian service. The Declaration of Geneva was intended to update the Oath of Hippocrates, which was no longer suitable to modern conditions. There is the International Code of Medical Ethics too of 2006, and is also the World Medical Association sponsored declaration which was adopted in Geneva. It codifies the duties of physicians in general, duties to patients and to colleagues. The other one is the Nuremberg Code. It is an international code of research ethics that was developed after the Second World War. widely adopted as a standard during the 1950s and 60s for protecting human subjects involved in clinical trials and research. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it's a milestone document in the history of human rights. The declaration was proclaimed by the UN General Assembly and sets out fundamental human rights to be universally protected. The Helsinki Declaration set of ethical principles regarding human experimentation that was developed by the World Medical Association in 1964. It is to be noted that the declaration is morally binding on all physicians and that obligations override any national or local laws or regulations. However, investigators will still have to abide by local legislation, but will be held to a higher standard that is proclaimed in this particular declaration. Let us look at the duties and responsibilities of physicians in general. The first thing that comes to mind is character of physician. Physician should uphold dignity and honor of his profession and render service to humanity. Like we said, it's basically a humanitarian service, and a number of ethical codes have also reinforced that. Persons with recognized qualification can only practice modern system of medicine. That is, you must have qualification. Maintain good medical practice. Render service to humanity with full respect for the dignity of the profession and also for the dignity of man. And it is also important to maintain medical records. It is important to maintain medical records pertaining to his or her indoor patients for a period of 3 years, and records to be given within 72 hours if requested by patients or legal authorities, and maintain a register of medical certificates giving full details of certificate issues. Display of registration numbers is important. Every doctor has a registration number, and this must be displayed for the sake of verification. Use of generic names of drugs also important. High quality assurance in patient care. Exposure of unethical conduct that a doctor or a physician knows about, and then the payment of professional service is also very important as a key duty of a physician. Evasion of legal restrictions are important. Physicians shall observe the laws of the country in regulating the practice of medicine. Obligations to the sick are important. Always respond to the cause of the sick. Ailments not within range of experience, he can refuse treatment and refer. Patience, delicacy, and secrecy. Patience and delicacy should characterize the physician. Secrecy of patients to be maintained except when required by laws of the state and to protect healthy individuals. Doctors are often called to pronounce prognosis. It is important neither to exaggerate nor minimize gravity of patient's condition. Do not neglect the patients. Physician free to choose. Once undertaking should not neglect the case. Respond to requests in emergency. Avoid unnecessary consultation. Consulting pathologists, radiologists, or asking for laboratory investigation should be done judiciously, and consultation should be for patients' benefit, and we should make sure that there's punctuality in consultation. Statement should be made to the patient after consultation, and also treatment should always be after consultation. Patient referred to specialists when necessary, and fees and other charges should be reasonable. Responsibility to each other. Physicians also owns one another some responsibilities. Physicians should consider it as a pleasure and privilege to render service to colleagues and also to their immediate family dependents. Let us look at conduct in consultation. Respect should be observed towards the physician in charge of the case, and no statement or remark be made. Consultant not to take the charge of the case. Appointment of the substitute only when he has the capacity. Only when he has the capacity to discharge the additional responsibility along with his or her other duties. Then visiting another physician's case, avoid remarks upon the diagnosis or the treatment that has been adopted. Let us look at the duties of physicians to public and paramedic staff. Physicians as citizens should particularly cooperate with the authorities in the administration, particularly in the areas of public health laws and regulations. On public and community health, physicians should enlighten the public concerning public health issues, particularly in the prevention of epidemic and communicable diseases. And to other staffs, particularly nurses, midwives, and pharmacists, physicians should promote and recognize their service and seek their cooperation. Healthcare is a teamwork, and everybody in a team has some role to play. Let us take a third brainstorming session, the patient's Bill of Rights. What rights are guaranteed for those receiving Medicare in Nigeria? You might wish to take a pen and a notebook and note down in keywords what you think about this question. In Nigeria, the entitlements of citizens as health consumers is clearly enunciated in the Patient's Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is a list of guarantees for those receiving Medicare. It may take the form of a non-binding declaration, but could also be promulgated into law. What we have in Nigeria today is the Bill of Rights, which is in form of non-binding declaration. Typically, a Patient Bill of Rights guarantees patients information, fair treatment, and autonomy over medical decisions like we have highlighted earlier, among other rights. It also outlines some responsibilities of the patients and also the provider responsibilities. It should be noted that significantly, Section 20 of National Health Act has converted many of the patient rights into law, including the right to emergency care. The key issue, which is very central to the practice of medical ethics, is breach of professional ethics. And what it means is contravention or violation of medical code of conduct. And this can happen in two forms. It could be as a misconduct, or it can be as a malpractice. Professional misconduct is behavior by a professional that implies an intentional compromise of ethical standard. It's a more serious disciplinary issue. While in the case of professional malpractice, it is a breach by a member of a profession of either a standard of care or a standard of conduct, but often it refers to negligence by a professional person, such as a lawyer, a doctor, dentist, an accountant, etc. The failure to meet a standard of care or a standard of conduct that is recognized by a profession reaches the level of malpractice when a patient is injured or damaged because of error. In this case, the emphasis is it's not intentional, but because of error. There are disciplinary mechanisms to address issues of misconduct or malpractice. Medical and allied professions are highly regulated through special organs of government, the professional regulatory agencies, which are available for various professionals, from medical doctors, for nurse and midwives, for pharmacists, for laboratory technicians. We also have for community health practitioners. Now, with specific emphasis on medical practitioners, Section 15 of Medical and Dental Practitioners Act provide for establishment of disciplinary tribunal and investigating panel. These are two separate entities. The tribunal is the instrument of censure for doctors, and its activities affect the quality of entire medical practice in Nigeria. It is the duty of the tribunal to ensure that victims of professional misconduct are not left helpless and hopeless. Let us look at some selected cases that the tribunal has handled over the years. We have a case of concealing a field operation. We have also cases of clinical mismanagement. Particularly, there is a case of mismanagement of varicose ulcer in a diabetic. There are some cases of refusal of blood transfusion, particularly due to the faith one is holding, like the Jehovah's Witnesses. There are also issues of issuing fake death certificates. There are others like fatal case of hydrotubation and cases of iatrogenic fecal fistula. There are cases of fatal surgical procedures in illegal premises where laparotomies, cesarean section, and neotomies were performed. For details on these cases, you may wish to refer to Principles of Clinical Ethics and Their Legal Dimensions in Nigeria, published by SKGO and Lai Babatunde, and specifically to pages 235 to 556. Let us look at special problems in ethics in Nigeria. The first and the commonest is ethics in industrial strikes. The Code of Medical Ethics in Nigeria makes it permissible for doctors to withdraw their services in pursuit of their rights under the labor laws. However, it is necessary for doctors wishing to take this course of action to make necessary arrangements for continuing care of their patients and must give adequate notice of their intention to these patients and to the hospital authorities. The other issue is infertility and family planning. We know women in Nigeria are put under undue pressure by relatives of husbands to get baby. But we also know that a significant proportion of infertility are due to sperm deficiencies. Therefore, a doctor's careless handling of family planning and investigation for infertility can easily disrupt a marriage, and this constitutes ethical dilemma of unimaginable proportion. The third special problem that is common is therapeutic abortion. Procuring or attempting to procure an abortion is a crime, but therapeutic abortion done with care and skill and in good faith without criminal intent and for the good of the mother is permitted. The issue of euthanasia, to speed up the end of human life trapped in pain and suffering when there is no hope of recovery and as a result of terminal and incurable condition, constitute ethical dilemma and no unanimity on this particular topic. Let us look at issue of refusal of blood transfusion. Ethical concerns will arise in a Jehovah's Witness or any other faith-based decision that would not have blood transfusion. And this is quite common. Denial of emergency care is common in Nigeria. Mostly people will say, oh, you need police report. It should be noted that Part 3 of the National Health Act has converted many ethical issues into law. Section 20 specifically of this law has criminalized refusal to treat emergency. And finally, there are also issues of organ transplantation. There are deep ethical concerns in organ donation, live or cadaveric, and transplantation. Let us take this assignment. Why are ethical issues in medical practice important and common? Online submission to be marked Aetcom assignment is recommended of not more than 500 words to be sent to IHAT Nigeria@gmail.com. Concluding this model, it is important to note that the practice of medicine and practice of ethics are inseparable. Clinical decisions often invoke an ethical dimension. Public at large expect doctors to not only have high standard of medical ability and skill, but also high ethical behaviors. It is the responsibility of medical and allied health professional regulatory bodies to institute acceptable standard of ethical behaviors by doctors, nurses, and other paramedical personnel. Our dream for a strong health system and better health outcomes will remain a dream unless we work for it. And working for it requires strong leadership, effective management, and also transparent governance.